Hello everyone. Excuse my voice in this video as I've been a bit under the weather, but we got big news today. Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon, just dropped a massive brand new patch 1.1. It's out now, and I think a lot of you are going to be quite interested in what it entails. We have new game plus, new content, a transmog system, a ton of fixes and improvements, the list goes on, and I'll be going over it all in today's sponsored video by Questline. Chapter markers below. Let me start off with a really quick intro to the game, just in case we have anyone new here. The Fall of Avalon is a first and third person open world RPG that features a ton of RPG systems and mechanics, including plenty of permutations when it comes to quests and endings. And the game tells a darker reimagining tale of King Arthur and his knights, but you do play as your own custom character. This is easily one of my favorite open world RPGs as of late, and this new patch offers the perfect time to jump in or perhaps come back if you already have finished the game. So patch 1.1, New Game Plus, is one of the big features of this patch. And it does exactly what many of you would expect it to do. It lets you start the game over on a harder difficulty, with every progressing New Game Plus level becoming increasingly more difficult. Now, the entire world will be reset, allowing you to make some different choices than you did in your prior runs, and enemies will become stronger and have higher status resistances, with your own armor being debuffed for each New Game Plus level. Now, along with the world resetting, your character will also lose your king's powers, your learned recipes, your quests, of course, your keys, and readable items, but everything else will be kept. So your character progression, the build you have going, your weapons and armor, etc., you're going to bring that with you into New Game Plus. Also note that all items that you find in New Game Plus and all items that you craft will be stronger or have improved rewards. And there's also some custom loot that has been added to the game that can only be found in New Game Plus. And I'll go over some of these interesting new items later on in the video, as it may be a bit spoilery. Next up, let's talk about the Transmog system, which is now available at the handcrafting station for a price, or if you have a player home, you can do it there for no cost. With this system, you can change the visual appearance of your items to any discovered style in the game for the same type of item that it is. A highly requested feature in many RPGs and now available in Tainted Grail as well. Up next, this patch brings with it a ton of fixes and improvements to the third act of the game, the Forlorn Swords, along with some brand new content in this region. In fact, there are 6 brand new quests in the Forlorn Swords, plus a reworked Stone Warden ending for anyone who has done that quest line before. This region's loot should also now be on par with loot when compared to the previous acts, so much more loot, and enemies across this region should also feel much more alive now. If you're curious where these new quests are, look to the Svine tribe for 3 of them in the Svine Fortress. You'll find the Love That Lingers quest, the Kindred Curse quest, and the Flesh of the Forest quest. And look to the Ulfer tribe for 3 more by speaking with NPCs in the living quarters beneath the tribe's fortress for the quests There Was Light Before, Looming Shadows, and For the Silent. This region also got some big art updates and environmental improvements to detail, etc., especially in a few of the dungeons. Right here, I'm in Grindylow Lair, and also a dungeon in Act 2 called Gates of Knowledge is a good example here of some revamped art. So yeah, a lot going on with the game's third region. I also have a large list of bug fixes here, etc., but I'm going to save those for later in the video as not everyone will be interested. Now let's briefly talk about the update to the third person mode. As some of you might already be able to tell right away, your character does not have to hunch over as much anymore when traveling and moving around, and this also goes for traveling on your horse. Just a reminder that third person was added to the game quite late, and the devs never have advertised it as a mode that the game was designed for, as it was designed from the ground up for first person. But I gotta say, I think it works quite well overall. I enjoy it quite a lot, and this update is a nice improvement to not have to see your character always looking as hunched. And this brings us into Quirko, the pet that you can obtain in Act 1 if you know where to go. The devs have decided that Quirko's functionality was too limited, so they have expanded Quirko's abilities with new features and forms, giving Quirko a bigger role in gameplay. So you can now feed Quirko to unlock new forms, one of which turns Quirko into a mount, and another into a summon. Some other notable gameplay tweaks and fixes, etc. You can now regrow your hand by talking to Kavor As new dialogue has been added and added to Black Anise as well. If you know, you know. Bulk options have been added for stash and shops. Armor has been hard capped at 95% for balancing reasons. This is especially important for New Game Plus. Head bobbing has been added, which can be enabled in the game's settings. Alphabetical sorting for items has been added. The journal now has more than 120 entries about NPC characters, along with new lore entries. And console players, the game has undergone some significant RAM optimizations, which should improve stability. And before I read off the rest of the patch notes, I do want to have a section here where I go over some of the new items with patch 1.1. There will be more than this, you'll have to find out about on your own, but here's a few, and spoiler warning given for those of you that want to discover all of these on your own. So for all of you magic users out there, you mages, we have a Ring of Reduced Conjuration, which makes it so summons block 20% less mana. We have an amulet called Pendant of Endless Study, which increases spell power by 1% for each character level that you have. The Witch Glass amulet, which makes it so that all negative status effects are 50% stronger on your enemies, while all negative status effects are 50% weaker on you, but last 100% longer. And another amulet called Sanguine Heart, where bleed that you apply will have 100% increased duration, but will deal 50% less damage. And we have a gem called Smoldering Wrath. Critical hits light your weapon on fire for 5 seconds, increasing its damage by 15% and burning enemies. For all of you melee-focused characters out there, we have some new armor called Ripper's Jacket, which increases parry window when dual-wielding weapons, and blocking costs 80% less stamina when dual-wielding. We have a one-handed axe called Titanium Tonic, which increases physical damage by 1% per missing health point. A gem called Gambit Scale, where all damage received is applied over 4 seconds instead of instantly. And we have a cloak called the Stoneback Cloak, which instantly regenerates all of your stamina when returning from overexertion. For all of you archers out there, we have a new light bow called Assassin's Bow, where attacks will have a 10% chance to blind, and sneak attacks will have an 80% chance to blind. We have a heavy bow called Harrowbend, and using this bow does not cost any stamina, and missing a target results in maximum overexertion. Interesting, a little bit of risk versus reward with that bow. For all of you stealth-focused players, we have a new dagger called Quiet Death, which deals 200% increased backstab damage, and a new armor piece called Ashwalker Boots, where your footsteps will produce no sound. And then for all of you hybrid classes out there, for the back, for your cloak, we have the Harness of Inverse Right. When you hit an enemy with a melee attack, your next range attack has 66% increased damage. And when you hit an enemy with a ranged attack, your next melee attack has 66% increased damage. For armor, we have the Hex Grip Vambraces, which increase physical damage by 50% of your spell power. And we have an amulet called Triskelion Core, where your max health will be equal to your max stamina, and your max stamina is equal to your max mana. Your max mana is equal to your max health. There's a sneak peek at a few of the new items that you'll find in 1.1. Also note that missing recipes for some armor and coatings have been added to their recipe books, and these books were also added to new sources so that even if you sold the recipe book, it will be available to you. All right, I'm just going to read off in like rapid fire fashion here this long list of notes for those of you guys that just want to listen. Not going to really be showing anything here, as I already showed off all the important key features of patch 1.1. So if you guys are leaving the video, yeah, hope you enjoy patch 1.1. I am excited to jump in myself, and I think there's a lot of great improvements here. So thank you guys for watching, and those of you guys that are staying, well, let's continue on. So for gameplay, we already talked about players' armor now being hard capped at 95%. We have a nerf here where the devs have removed pretty much all gain of crit chance from items in the game, as it was too easy to get 100% and break New Game Plus balancing. All nerfed items, upgrade levels will be reset, and resources spent will be returned to you. New enemies have been introduced in Womb of Mather, probably pronouncing that wrong. New enemies have been introduced in Mountain Ice Cave. A new enemy, the Skeleton Knight, has been added. Additional enemies have been added to some of the Forlorn Swords dungeons. Improved combat with Bodil in Enter the Void quest. Fixed skill imbibed by the alchemy, sometimes generating errors and not applying the duration correctly. They fixed First Blood skill description, the Carnage skill description, fixed the Charge Cantrip skill, increasing all critical chances. They fixed the Unstoppable Rage skill description and increased value. Fixed Claire's Pen Wand effect not being increased by the Wand Mastery and Wand Overcharge skills. Some AoE spells now take height of an enemy into hit or miss calculations. Increased damage dealt by enemies in the Forlorn Swords. Increased damage dealt by tier 5 and 6 bows. Nerf the damage and decreased mana cost of the Scorching Blaze spell. Added Summon Sir Gawain and Summon Sir Bertilac spells to Tomb of Sir Gawain. Horse movement in third person has been modified. Rebalanced Agile Hunter and Rabbit Juice potions. Rebalanced Archdruid set. Rebalanced Spellslinger set. Rebalanced the Night Stalker set. Rebalanced Royal set. Increased the Stag's Defiant Shield damage. Lowered Revenant's Ribcage effect gain per item level. Lowered Queen's Protector's Crown effect gain per item level from 2 to 1%. Same with the previous lowering. Fixed Lucky Amulet having an unintended effect with NPCs block behavior. Fixed some keywords not showing their descriptions. Remove slight camera offset when drawing a bow in third person perspective. New model animations and behaviors for Big Corpse Eater mini boss. New animations and improved behaviors for Giant Boss. Fixed the Ancient Beholder enemy so it has correct attack ranges and doesn't remain idle during combat. Arrows should now properly appear on equipped Robbie's bow. Stagfather should now rotate correctly in combat. Summons, we have Hero Summon should properly restore King's Soul, and Hero Summon shouldn't deal damage to the hero for their ranged attacks. The Boss Arena and Stone Warden's Vault has been improved. Then Giant's Borrow, an exploit allowing players to attack enemies from an unreachable rock, has been fixed. Requests, Yvain and Maggot should reappear and stop disappearing. A talk option shouldn't always be available at the Fueled Bonfire even if no dialogue is available. As I stated earlier, the devs have revamped the Stone Warden's ending mission. New dialogues and choices that determine the conclusions of the guild's quest, and as a reward, Darv Hanur will teach the player how to craft a unique set of armor. Of course, we have the 6 new quests that I talked about earlier, each of which will have quest rewards. The devs have fixed interaction with the Necromancer in the Forlorn Swords region, fixed quest markers, and reworked the logic of the light reading quest. Some quest markers should now update immediately. Morgan's chest will now appear in the correct location. Fixed an issue in the Blood for Blood quest where cultists killed before accepting the quest did not count towards the required total. Fixed an issue in the Blood for Blood quest where the player could complete it without taking any action. For the Breach, reporting to Barlam will now complete the quest instead of failing it. Bear's Shop will now be available if the player had previously rejected him. Fixed an issue in the dialogue with Cinnamon Sage where if the player was invited inside his house, the dialogue would not reflect it. Fae in Unholy Matrimony quest should attack the player instead of waiting for the hero. Fixed Portal for Quest and Omen in Flesh. Fixed an issue where Hob would give the player infinite memory shards when spoken to in the Forlorn Swords region. Percival should be able to talk to the hero even after receiving instant damage, not staying in an undefined state until reloaded. Hunting for Weird Deer shouldn't self-complete after night ends. Attacking Stagfather before talking with him no longer corrupts quest progress. Chatterblade will no longer speak during dialogue with other characters. Fixed subtitles display issue for some Chatterblade lines. Implemented progression for Tiernan's Shop. Fixed incorrect progression of the Shadow of the Horns quest that occurred if the player bypassed Odran. Fixed interaction concerning a ghost residing in a certain piece of armor. Then we have a bunch of quest flow fixes. We have some minor quest improvements where missing objectives and markers have been added. Trackers have been fixed. Quest markers have been improved. The list is quite long here. I don't think I have to go over all these. For world updates here, enemies and NPCs in the open world now feel more alive with improved behaviors. The geometry of Ira's and Frigg's dungeons have changed and new tunnels have been added. Added 3 brand new caves in the Forlorn Swords area. The Gunvalder Ancestral Cave, the Crimson Cave, and Ramor's Cave. Rooms of Bone Mask Cave has been improved and extended. Gates of Knowledge Dungeon has been reworked. In a clean, well-lighted place, an exploit that allowed players to jump onto a collider during the boss fight has been fixed, and a loot tunnel that unlocks after defeating the boss has been added. In Vigdis and Edgel's house, the basement where Vigdis lives has been rearranged. An elevator pass, a lever has been added at the lower section of the level to call the elevator. In Grotto of the First Men, the mini-boss arena has been expanded, and new resting spots with a campfire have been added. In Alper Village, terrain tweaks have been made. In Wretched Hideout, vegetation has been added and some blocking elements on the floor have been removed. Paraffin, I forgot how to pronounce his name, will now work in the forge alongside Stroner. Fixed a cliff's geometry in Perched Cave and smooth the terrain near the water. Sorry, I'm actually really sick right now, and I feel like I'm not pronouncing things correctly, and I'm reading horribly, but I'm giving it my best here. In Mine, non-interactive beds have been replaced with interactive ones. An exploit near the grate has been removed. In Mine, new enemies have been added along with additional loot and new room containing a bed and a crafting station. The boss fight arena and Lands of the Hunt has been changed to create more space. Grotto of the First Men, the level entrance has been reworked. Fixed an issue with the crane that could be exploited to break the boss fight in Remor's Cave. In Cave by the Cliff, safeguards have been added to prevent enemies from walking into rocks. Near Thud Village, minor visual improvements have been made to the path. Added alchemy station in Haled Sanctum. Added a crafting table in Kavoris Camp. Blacksmith stations and alchemy stations were added to some houses in the Forlorn Swords. Improved landscape texture painting in the entire Forlorn Swords region. Now, speaking of loot, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the Forlorn Swords have been populated with a ton of loot, hopefully equal to what you experienced in Act 1 and 2. That's what the devs are saying. And loot has been added to so many different areas. I'm going to give you the list of the different places here. So new sets have been scattered of the tribefolk armor for each of the remaining Del Riata tribes across the region and their villages. Grotto of the First Men, Dodds Heimsgard, Gawain's Crypt, Mine Pass, Old Weirdstone Mine, the Cave by the Cliff, the Perch Cave, the Cobalt Cave, Mountain Ice Cave, Frozen Realm, Stone Warden's Vault, Womb of Mythair, Warrior Grave, Gates of Knowledge, Tomb of Gawain, Tomb of Sir Galahad, Giant's Barrow, A Clean Well-Lighted Place, the Weaver's Sanctum, Stone Warden's Hearth, and Stone Warden's Vault, so expect new loot in all of those areas. Environmental art has been enhanced in also plenty of different places. A Clean Well-Lighted Place, Warrior's Grave, Shrine Cellars, the Elevator Pass, Barrow of the Horned Shadow, Cold Reach, Pictish Hideout, Dodge Heimsgard, I don't know how to pronounce that, Cave by the Cliff, Frozen Realm, Remor's Cave, Giant's Barrow, Old Weirdstone Mine, Stone Warden's Vault. All those places have received enhanced environmental art. Then we have a list of minor world fixes. You might have noticed a hole in Cold Reach. Well, that has been fixed. Geometry in King's Threat that could cause the player to get stuck in the rocks in the final room has been fixed. In the Stone Warden's Vault, a hole near the stairs has been patched. Cave by the Cliff, collision issues have been fixed. In Warrior's Grave, a non-interactive shield has been replaced with an interactive one. Hostile NPCs will no longer wander into Govanon. In the Stone Warden's Hearth, collision at the end of the level has been improved. Fixed terrain holes and nav mesh in Shrine Cellars. Fixed nav mesh in the Elevator Pass. Fixed nav mesh in Clean Well-Lighted Place. Then we have a bunch of technical fixes here. One that stands out. Switching the player perspective will no longer re-equip all items that are currently equipped. I just wanted to point that out because I do remember that kind of being a pain in the butt. And this also fixes the loss of HP on changing perspective. We have some audio improvements to sounds and different areas of the game with new licensed music tracks, actually. We have improvements to graphics in a whole bunch of different areas and improvements to UI. A large batch of fixes for issues related to rebinding, especially when you use multiple controllers. Mouse and keyboard are now properly supported on consoles. Added immune status icons to indicate which statuses an enemy is immune to. Added icons to indicate if an enemy is resistant or vulnerable to a status. Refreshed main character HUD bars. Better organization of buttons on the title screen UI for a cleaner layout. Fixed incorrect position of hero and character sheet status UI. You can now change default perspective for mounted travel in the settings. Fixed upgrade costs not refreshing properly and sharpening and weight reduction. Fixed 3D quest marker appearing in the quest log UI. Added notification merging to reduce the number of messages displayed on the screen. Pop-ups no longer display a separator line if no title is present. Added an info message to the mod manager UI when no mods are available. Fixed an issue where some parts of the clock couldn't be selected in the resting UI. Fixed weapon comparison bug using offhand instead of main hand. Added notification when a crafting ingredient is returned to the inventory. For controllers, it was impossible to remove chosen ingredient from cooking. That has been fixed. Fixed ingredient quantity not updating correctly when using a talent that returns ingredients after crafting. Unified gamepad controls for tab navigation across all UI panels, excluding item list tabs.
changes in the bag UI, added pagination to recipe book tooltips for correct recipe description display, added a missing description for one of the dual knight capes. And the last section here is miscellaneous. It's not that long. Queen Bee should correctly light up her wings during combat now. The paused label in cutscenes now appears on the top to avoid confusion in rare cases. Unified the skipped prompt in credits with the one used in cutscenes. Added 3D gamma settings while changing brightness in game. Fixed the silent elevator in the Forlorn Swords. Robbie's bow fixed an issue with animation synchronize. Ivor fixed animation. Now Ivor looks at the hero during the conversation. Added new readables to the Gates of Knowledge dungeon. Minor issues with NPC's rotation and target tracking have been resolved. And for consoles, fixed an issue preventing save slot names from being edited again. And at the end of all these notes here, the devs say they probably missed some changes. And you'll probably find more while playing. And that's going to be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you to Questline for sponsoring this video. It's been an absolute joy covering this game and its development and beyond, and I'm really excited for the team and whatever the future may bring for them. The patch 1.1 is out now, so go and enjoy New Game Plus. Have a good time. I know I'll certainly be playing myself. I'll leave a link to the game below if you haven't picked it up yet. And I'll catch you all on the next one.